Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract opportunities, clarity, and solutions effortlessly, while others strive, pray, and plan, but remain trapped in the same cycles? It seems unfair, right? But here's a counterintuitive truth. It's not about working harder, praying more, or striving harder. The secret lies in something that 90% of people have never learned, something invisible, silent, but absolutely transformative. Imagine for a moment that the key to unlocking extraordinary results lies within your mind, and that this key only works when you align it with something greater than yourself. Sounds controversial? Perhaps, but it is precisely this paradox that separates those who get lost in the daily grind from those who experience everyday miracles. And the most incredible thing, this simple technique doesn't require years of experience or special skills, just attention, intention, and guided practice. Today, you will discover a path that challenges common beliefs, a sequence of steps that transforms the mind into a channel for solutions, direction, and abundance. You will learn how to identify subtle blocks, realign your attention, and activate results that previously seemed impossible. Prepare to change the way you think, act, and receive, and realize that what seemed inaccessible is, in fact, within your reach now. Why do two people pray the same way, but experience different results? You've seen this happen thousands of times. Two people saying the same prayer, quoting the same verse, saying Amen with the same intensity. And yet, one life begins to change. Doors open, peace settles in, provision appears, while the other remains trapped in the same cycle. And yes, this can mess with someone's head. Because deep down, the person starts to wonder, is God making a distinction between the two? But here's the thing. It's not about praying louder. It's about praying in unison. Mindset, faith, and intention, pointing in the same direction. A person can be speaking to God while their mind screams the opposite. They pray for divine guidance, but become obsessed with control. They ask for miracles but feed anxiety all day long. They profess faith but rehearse fear as if it were a daily podcast. And let's be honest, if the mind is the channel, a noisy channel doesn't transmit clearly. That's why alignment matters. When the mind aligns with God, miracles stop seeming random and start seeming like a pattern, because the inner world finally cooperates with prayer. If you want to test this, you don't need a 3-hour ritual. You need a 3-minute reflection. Before praying, pause and ask yourself, what am I, really, and believe now, faith or fear? Then you choose a small alignment movement. Breathe slowly, relax your shoulders, release mental agitation, and pray as if God were already guiding the next step. Because when the mindset shifts from, I need to force it, to, I will follow divine guidance, something changes, rapidly, almost as if the inner atmosphere calms down. And that's exactly where the next step begins. The mind as a channel. Why faith without alignment hinders results. Faith is not the engine. The mind is the wiring. And it doesn't matter how powerful. Regardless of the source, if the wiring is crossed, the energy does not flow correctly. Napoleon Hill hinted at this when he spoke about the infinite intelligence, not as something mystical and distant, but as a source that only responds when the mind is properly attuned. That is why some people believe deeply in God, but live mentally entangled in fear, urgency, and contradiction. The signal becomes confused. The mind is never neutral. It is always aligned or interfering. When someone prays for provision but keeps repeating the idea of scarcity, the subconscious hears the lack more intensely than the prayer. When they ask for guidance but make hasty decisions, divine guidance finds no space to manifest. And that is the subtle trap. Most people think the problem is lack of faith, when in reality it is mental misalignment. Prayer lifts you up, but mindset pulls everything down. Observe how your mind behaves right after prayer. Do you feel peace, or do you immediately grab your phone, overthink, and panic? This reaction reveals the truth. A practical change? After praying, wait 60 seconds in silence. No affirmations, no words, no effort, just stillness. Because this pause trains the mind to receive instead of pursue. And once the mind learns to remain open, the next layer, like the fear that secretly blocks miracles, begins to reveal itself. The real blockage isn't a lack of faith, it's an excess of disguised fear. Most people don't realize they're afraid. They simply call it being realistic. And that's where the trap lies. Fear rarely appears screaming. It appears organized, logical, well-dressed. It sounds like caution, responsibility, planning. But deep down, it's still fear. And fear is the fastest path to spiritual misalignment. Because while faith opens the channel, fear silently clogs it, one thought at a time. Thus, someone prays for abundance, but mentally rehearses everything that could go wrong. They ask God for guidance, but continue comparing themselves to others, browsing the internet, measuring, doubting. The mind remains occupied trying to protect, but protection without trust turns into paralysis. And here is the uncomfortable realization. Miracles don't respond to mental tension. They respond to mental permission. When the mind is constantly on guard, it sends the message, I am not ready to receive. There's something practical, almost simple enough to be underestimated. A daily audit of fear. It's not about writing in a journal for hours on end, just one question at night. What thought drained me the most today? Once identified, that thought is immediately reframed. If it's, what if it doesn't work out? It becomes, what if God has already prepared a path that I can't yet see? This small change doesn't eliminate fear overnight, but it weakens its hold. And when the fear dissipates, something deeper begins to happen. The mind begins to perceive guidance instead of noise, which paves the way for the next topic. When control becomes the enemy of miracles, most people don't struggle with a lack of faith. They struggle with an excess of control. They believe in God, of course, but only as long as things happen on their timeline, in their way, through paths they can predict. And without realizing it, control gradually replaces trust. The irony? The more someone tries to control the outcomes, the less space is left for divine guidance to act. Notice a pattern. Whenever life seems heavy, rushed, or stuck, there's usually a silent inner phrase that repeats itself. If I don't deal with this, it won't work. This thought sounds responsible, even noble, but spiritually, it signals separation. It tells the mind, I'm on my own, and a mind that feels alone becomes tense, anxious, hypervigilant, exactly the opposite state needed for miracles to happen. Control doesn't create security, it creates exhaustion. So conduct a small but powerful experiment. For one decision this week, just one, pause before acting and ask yourself, what feels aligned rather than forced? Not what feels quickest, not what feels safest. What feels calm, steady, coherent. Then, wait a little longer than usual before deciding. This delay isn't procrastination, it's permission. Because when one loosens control, clarity often emerges unexpectedly. And that feeling, of being guided rather than pressured, becomes the bridge to something even more subtle. The silent signs that alignment has already begun. The silent signs that the mind has already come into alignment. The alignment rarely arrives with fireworks. No loud announcements. No drastic overnight changes. Instead, it emerges quietly, almost imperceptibly. The first sign is an unexpected calm, a peace, without a logical reason. The situation hasn't changed yet, the problem still exists, but inside, something calms down. And this peace isn't apathy. It's trust without tension. It's the mind switching out of survival mode and into trust mode, even before external evidence appears. People often overlook this. When alignment occurs, emotional reactions soften. Things that once drained our energy stop weighing us down so much. A difficult conversation doesn't hijack the whole day. A delay doesn't trigger panic. The mind begins to observe instead of react. This isn't weakness, it's altitude. From a higher perspective, problems diminish. And from this mental altitude, intuition becomes clearer, almost like an internal GPS whispering instructions without urgency. To make this tangible, I suggest a simple mindfulness practice. For a few days, observe the moments when answers arise effortlessly. An idea in the shower, clarity while driving, a solution appearing when you least expect it. These are not coincidences. They are indicators. Alignment transforms the mind into a receiver, not a hunter. And once someone recognizes these subtle signs, a deeper curiosity naturally awakens. If this is already happening, what am I blocking without knowing it? This question sets the stage for the next topic: the invisible blocks that sabotage alignment without you realizing it. Napoleon Hill, he likes to call them invisible hands on the brake. From the outside, life seems hectic. Prayers, actions, effort, movement. But internally, something impedes the flow. One of the biggest blockages is anxiety. Not dramatic anxiety, but that constant feeling of alert. The mind always one step ahead, rehearsing futures, trying to avoid pain. Anxiety seems productive, but spiritually it signals distrust. And miracles, by nature, don't happen in a mind that is always bracing for impact. There is yet another subtle obstacle: focusing on the problem instead of the direction. Napoleon Hill explains that whatever occupies the mind becomes the message transmitted. When someone spends the day narrating what is wrong, recalling setbacks, analyzing failures, the mind vibrates with the energy of the problem, not with the energy of the solution. This is why two people in the same situation can have completely different results. One asks, "Why is this happening to me?" While the other, in silence, asks, "What is this teaching me?" Same circumstance, different alignment. Napoleon grounds the idea in something practical and almost playful. For an entire day, I challenge you to banish one phrase from your vocabulary. This is difficult. Every time it tries to come out, it's replaced with, "This is revealing itself." This small change doesn't deny reality. It reframes it. And when language changes, inner posture also changes. It's usually at this point that people begin to realize how many internal habits they've been running on autopilot, and why eliminating them opens up space for the next, more intentional step. Alignment begins when the mind truly slows down. Napoleon Hill often says something that sounds simple, almost too obvious, but that resonates deeply. God doesn't compete with mental agitation. When the mind is racing, jumping from worry to planning, from fear to control, there's no inner space for direction to take hold. That's why so many people pray and still feel lost, not because God isn't speaking, but because the mind never stops long enough to listen. Alignment doesn't begin with action. It begins with silence. Reframe silence in a way that feels accessible. Silence isn't about being spiritual or completely emptying your mind. It's about slowing down your internal rhythm. 5 minutes without stimuli, no cell phone, no music, no internet browsing, already changes your state. The body relaxes, breathing deepens, and thoughts stop screaming. And in this slower rhythm, intuition begins to sound clearer. That's usually when insights arrive. Not forced, not sought, just perceived. There's a concrete habit anyone can try. Choose a time of day, morning or evening, and sit in silence for 3 to 5 minutes after praying. without asking, without affirming, without fixing anything. Just remaining present. At first it feels strange, even uncomfortable. But with repetition, the mind learns something new. It doesn't need to rush to feel safe. And once the mind learns to rest, it becomes much easier to intentionally shift focus. Which leads us directly to the next topic. What do you choose to focus on after quieting down? The right focus activates movement. The wrong focus creates delay. Many people sabotage themselves without realizing it. Once the mind slows down, something crucial happens. Focus becomes a choice again. And here's the uncomfortable truth. What one focuses on after silencing the mind determines what begins to move. Focus on fear, and fear multiplies. Focus on lack, and lack seems more intense. But focus on direction, confidence, and possibility. That's where momentum silently kicks in. The mind functions like a spotlight. Wherever it points, energy follows. That's why two people can be in identical situations, same job, same bills, same challenges, but experience completely different realities. One wonders, what if this goes wrong? While the other asks, what's the next aligned step? The first creates delay through tension. The second creates flow through clarity. Same world, different focus. To make this practical, do a simple daily exercise. Every morning before checking messages or news, choose an intentional focus for the day. Not a to-do list, an inner posture. It could be peace, clarity, or confidence. Write it down or say it aloud. Then, whenever stress arises, gently return to that word. It seems like a small thing, but consistency reprograms attention. And when the focus stabilizes, something interesting happens. Results cease to be forced and begin to emerge naturally, which paves the way for the next topic. When the weather starts to cooperate, not to resist. There is something people rarely consciously connect with. Misalignment feels like a constant delay. Everything takes longer. Everything gets stuck. Everything requires extra effort. But alignment changes the relationship with time itself. Suddenly, things that were stuck begin to move. Processes become simpler. Answers arrive faster than expected. Not because someone is in a hurry, but because they stopped fighting against the current. Time ceases to be an enemy and begins to act as an ally. So reframe patience in a surprising way. Patience isn't passive waiting, it's waiting without anxiety. There's a huge difference. When someone waits while mentally checking the clock, questioning God, and comparing schedules, it creates friction. But when you wait with tranquil expectation, time seems to compress. Opportunities align. Conversations happen at the right moment. And what seemed like delay reveals itself as preparation. Alignment synchronizes time. Think about how many times someone has made a hasty decision just to get it over with, only to realize later that they've complicated everything. Compare that to the times they waited a little longer, and the solution came naturally. There's a simple rule. If a decision seems urgent, don't stay. Anxious? Take a break. Alignment rarely shouts. It silently confirms. And when someone learns to respect time instead of rushing it, the next layer appears almost automatically. Doors begin to open without haste, which is exactly where the next topic leads us. Doors that open effortlessly when you stop chasing after them. It seems almost surreal when it starts to happen. After the alignment is established, something changes externally. Opportunities begin to arise effortlessly. People get in touch unexpectedly. Conversations become favorable. Invitations arrive without insistence. And the strange part? There's no desperation involved. The person is no longer chasing after you. They are available. And availability, more than effort, is what allows divine guidance to move the pieces behind the scenes. It's necessary to reshape a belief deeply rooted in the culture of rushing. Chasing after everything seems responsible, but often signals distrust. When someone is aligned, that person still acts, but acts with clarity, not urgency. They present themselves as prepared, not frantic, and this calm presence makes them visible to the right people. Doors don't open because someone knocked harder. They open because the timing and posture finally aligned. When alignment is genuine, the effort feels light, not heavy. There is movement, but without internal resistance. If something requires constant convincing, pleading, or insistence, it's often not the door. It's a wall. Ask yourself, does this path drain me or energize me? Energy doesn't lie, and when someone begins to trust this signal, something else starts to happen. Naturally, certain people enter, others leave, which prepares the ground for the next topic. Right people, right connections. Alignment reorganizes who walks with you. Alignment not only changes circumstances, but also reorganizes relationships. And this may seem strange at first. When the mind aligns with God, tolerance for noise, drama, and misalignment naturally decreases. Conversations that once seemed normal begin to feel heavy. Certain connections dissolve without conflict. Not because someone has become better, but because the frequencies no longer match. Alignment simplifies the social field. People often cling to relationships out of habit, history, or fear of loneliness. But alignment brings discernment. You can sharpen your inner perception of this matches or this drains. Suddenly, new people appear, sometimes through coincidences that aren't actually coincidences. A casual conversation, a message at the right time, a book recommendation that opens a door. Divine guidance often manifests through people. Instead of asking, "Why did this person leave my life?" ask, "What space has opened up?" Because alignment is efficient, remove what no longer serves you for the next phase of your life. There's a simple practice. After interactions, observe how your body feels. Energized or exhausted? Clear-headed or confused? The body often knows before the mind admits it. And as relationships reorganize, something deeper becomes possible. Clearer decisions, more defined paths, and a stronger sense of purpose. Which is exactly what the next topic explores. When the direction becomes clear, fewer options, more certainty. Confusion is not a sign of lack of ability, but of excessive noise. When the mind is misaligned, everything seems too possible. Too many ideas, too many paths, too many external opinions. This abundance of options seems like freedom, but it causes paralysis. Alignment does the opposite. It doesn't offer more options. It removes the unnecessary ones. And that's when clarity begins to seem almost protected. I'll explain how divine guidance generally works. It rarely manifests as a booming voice or a dramatic signal. Instead, it appears as coherence. One option seems light, consistent, calm, and right. The others seem strident, urgent, full of justifications. And here's the main insight. Alignment doesn't completely eliminate doubt, but it reduces mental debate. When the mind aligns with God, decisions cease to seem like battles and begin to seem like steps. To make this practical, there's a simple filter for decisions. Ask yourself 3 questions. Does this bring me peace? Is this aligned with who I'm becoming? Does this require effort? If the answer to the first 2 is yes, and the third is no, that usually indicates the right direction. Not perfection, but the right direction. And when someone starts to trust this inner compass, something changes internally. Action becomes simpler, lighter, and more effective. Which naturally leads us to the next topic. Provision arrives without warning, recognizing unexpected abundance. Once alignment is established, provision doesn't always come as expected. Sometimes it's dramatic, sometimes subtle, almost imperceptible. A call out of nowhere, a solution that comes in a seemingly casual conversation, a resource that manifests itself precisely when needed. The mind aligned with God learns to recognize these gifts, not as luck, but as concrete answers. And this recognition is crucial. Ignoring them is like being blind to one's own miracles. There's a reason why most people ignore abundance. They're busy anticipating, planning, and worrying, and they don't notice the small but constant signs of prosperity. A friend sends helpful advice exactly when it's needed. A book opens to a page with the answer. An opportunity aligns perfectly with skills or resources they didn't know how to access. These aren't coincidences. They're signs that the mind begins to interpret naturally when tuned to the right frequency. There's a practical habit for increasing awareness. Every night, take 2 minutes to list moments when something unexpectedly aligned. It doesn't have to be something monumental, just significant. Over time, this trains the mind to see abundance in subtle ways, building confidence that divine timing is real. And as one recognizes provision more clearly, one naturally develops deeper confidence and acts more deliberately, which sets the stage for the next topic. Consistency creates momentum. Daily alignment transforms results. Alignment is powerful, but fleeting if treated as an isolated experiment. Miracles don't respond to bursts of effort. They respond to consistency. 5 minutes a day, practiced with intention, create momentum faster than hours of sporadic effort. It's not about intensity, but frequency. Alignment becomes a habit, a lifestyle, not a state for special occasions. So I'm going to show you how this applies to everyday life. You wake up, dedicate a brief moment to quieting your mind, intentionally focus, and go through the day with this calm inner compass. Repeat daily. Small gestures, pausing before making decisions, recognizing fear, shifting focus, accumulate invisibly. And the amazing part? The momentum begins to generate results effortlessly. Opportunities, clarity, provision, everything arises naturally, as if the universe were accompanying the internal change. Next, you make this concrete with an exercise. Choose an alignment practice, silence, visualization, gratitude, and practice it at the same time every day for a week. Monitor your feelings, energy, and perceptions. The first day may seem subtle, even mundane. By the 7th day, patterns begin to emerge. Doors seem to open, the rhythm shifts, and the mind recognizes previously unseen connections. And once momentum is built, waiting becomes not only easier, but pleasurable. Which leads us directly to the next topic. The right expectation, how to wait with active faith. This is where many people stumble. They pray, they align themselves, they act, and then they forget a crucial element: expectation. But not just any expectation. Expectation is not passive. It is a confident and active posture that says, I know it's coming, even if I can't see it yet. When the mind adopts this posture, miracles seem to accelerate, time seems to flow naturally, and the person perceives opportunities that would have previously gone unnoticed. It is a faith that looks to the future without panic. There is a daily process of how this manifests. After a period of silence, focus, and deliberate action, conduct a self-assessment. Am I waiting with doubt, or am I anticipating alignment? Often, a subtle fear creeps in disguised as caution. Realignment at this point is simple but crucial. Just remind your mind of the big picture. Repeat an affirmation of confidence, or visualize the outcome as if it were already happening. Small internal stimuli maintain the frequency of faith. Next, choose a situation where outcomes are pending and practice active expectation. Whenever worry arises, replace it with the thought, it's unfolding perfectly. Notice how decisions, opportunities, and interactions begin to synchronize in ways that previously seemed random. That's the beauty of expectation. The mind remains engaged, yet calm. And once expectation becomes consistent, something almost magical happens. The alignment becomes self-reinforcing, naturally leading to the next step of applying these principles to everyday life. Active delivery. Trusting without giving up. This step is like a secret that most people ignore. Surrender doesn't mean stopping acting. It means cooperating with a larger plan. Many think that surrendering is passive, that they give up trying. But active surrender is different. It's acting fully but letting go of the obsession with results. It's saying internally, I did my part. Now I trust that the rest will unfold. This subtle shift transforms anxiety into calm, effort into fluidity, and struggle into clarity. There are real-life applications. A person can spend weeks preparing a presentation, praying for inspiration, refining ideas, and then detach themselves from the outcome. Instead of being restless, worried, or overwhelmed with work, focus on contributing, being present, and giving your best. Miracles begin to happen in unexpected ways. Support arrives, questions are answered, the right moment arises. The key? Act with intention, letting go of the need to control everything. I want to propose a simple daily exercise. Choose one task each day that normally causes you stress or urgency. Prepare for it, execute it, and consciously release the result. Observe the difference between tension and calm, despair and expectation. Over time, this builds a mindset where God's guidance flows easily into decision-making. And as surrender becomes a habit, the next layer naturally emerges: gratitude before receiving, which further amplifies alignment. Gratitude in advance, opening channels before the result. Give thanks before seeing, before receiving. Most people think gratitude comes afterward, when the blessing is obvious. But alignment works differently. Anticipatory gratitude sends a signal to the mind and spirit. I trust this is already on its way. It's a vibration that opens invisible doors, creating space for provision, intuition, and timing to converge. Effortlessly. This works in practice. The mind perceives patterns. When someone consistently recognizes what is already flowing, even in small doses, they tune in to abundance. A simple example. Before a meeting, take a moment to silently appreciate the guidance, clarity, and unexpected help. The mindset shifts from scarcity to expectation. Suddenly, ideas arise naturally, conversations flow, and doors open in ways that seem like chance. There's a concrete habit for viewers to try. Every morning, list 3 things you are grateful for. No excuses. It could be the air you breathe, a skill you possess, or trust in divine timing. Over the days, this practice reprograms perception. Instead of chasing, you observe and receive. And once gratitude is internalized, consistency becomes natural. Which leads us directly to the next topic about maintaining alignment daily. Daily consistency. Turning practice into habit. Alignment is not an isolated event. It's a lifestyle. Practicing it sporadically may seem inspiring, but it doesn't create momentum. Daily consistency, even in small doses, accumulates invisibly. 5 minutes of daily silence, focus, surrender, and gratitude build a rhythm that the mind, body, and spirit begin to recognize. This rhythm eventually transforms into momentum, and momentum makes miracles seem almost natural. It's not about intensity. 3 hours one day and 0 the next doesn't help. It's about frequency. He suggests establishing a daily ritual, morning or night, at the same time, with the same intention. During this time, quiet your mind, align your thoughts with faith, practice surrender, and cultivate gratitude. Over time, this small routine begins to influence decisions, relationships, and opportunities without forcing anything. The inner state begins to guide the outer world. Think of habits like brushing your teeth or making coffee. At first you notice it, but it soon becomes automatic. Consistency in alignment works the same way. Daily repetition trains the subconscious to recognize opportunities, the right moment, and guidance. And when alignment is consistent, waiting becomes calm, clarity becomes natural, and the next layer emerges: expectation with faith, which amplifies the entire process. Expectation with faith. How to wait with active confidence. This is where many stumble. People pray, align themselves, act, and then wait passively, allowing doubt to take hold. Expectation with faith is different. It's not about idle waiting, but rather confident engagement, an inner posture that says, I know it's coming, even if I don't see it yet. This mindset transforms perception. Time seems to pass faster, clarity becomes sharper, and even small signs of progress become perceptible. Faith and expectation intertwine, nourishing each other. After moments of silence, focus, and consistent action, pause to check your inner state. Are your thoughts racing, full of doubts or complaints? Immediately replace them with mental affirmations or visualizations. Imagine the outcome as if it were already happening. Even subtle changes like this are important. The mind begins to prioritize possibilities instead of problems, confidence instead of worry. And with this active expectation, the individual begins to perceive synchronicities that previously seemed random. Make this a daily exercise. Choose a pending goal or prayer, and dedicate a few minutes each day to visualizing its fulfillment with gratitude. When fear or impatience arises, gently redirect them toward calm expectation. Over time, this practice trains the mind to remain aligned, the heart to remain open, and actions to naturally follow divine timing. Once expectation is integrated, the stage is set for active surrender, the next vital step in the alignment process. Final exercise: immediate alignment in 2 minutes. Do something simple. A 2-minute alignment exercise that anyone can do anywhere. Close your eyes, if possible. Take a few deep breaths and feel your heartbeat. Mentally declare, God, I align my mind with your will. I release myself from control, fear, and doubt. I open myself to your guidance and wisdom. The language is intentional, affirming inner trust, creating receptivity, and preparing the ground for immediate mental alignment. Place a hand over your heart to anchor your attention. Breathe slowly and visualize your inner space opening. Imagine the tension leaving your body with each exhale and your faith expanding with each inhale. Thoughts may wander, and that's normal. Gently return to your thoughts. The simplicity of the exercise hides its power. Even in 2 minutes, the mind shifts from chasing and forcing to receiving and trusting. This is not a ritual. It's a recalibration. After completing the exercise, take a moment to notice subtle changes: calmness, clarity, or even a slight intuitive boost. Then, solidify this with a verbal or written commitment. I align my mind with God. This transforms a brief mental pause into a declaration of faith, setting the frequency for the day. From there, the mind is attuned, attention is focused, and the impulse is ready to guide the next steps naturally, paving the way for continuous alignment. Now that you know these steps and signs, the question remains: will you actually put this into practice, or will you let your old mindset continue to dictate limited results? Think about it. What changes in your life if you start today to align focus, commitment, and expectation with conscious intention? Can you imagine how many doors could open, how many opportunities could arise, and how many situations could be resolved with less effort? And if you think it's just theory, remember, small daily adjustments generate gigantic changes. What habit can you adopt today to see results tomorrow? What thought can you replace now that will free up space for unexpected solutions? Start testing, observe the signs, write down the small victories, and see how consistency changes everything. If you learned something valuable, I want you to make a commitment now. Subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs to understand that aligning the mind changes life. Leave a comment telling me which step you will apply first. I want to know where this knowledge will start to work in your routine. And remember, miracles, clarity, and direction are already available. You just need to align your mind to receive them.